My stepmother was a vile creature. I suppose all children with remarried fathers think that way, but in this case it was true. She married my father only because he was wealthy, and she hated children. There were three of us: me, Maria, my middle brother Richard, and my younger brother Charlie. We were the price my stepmother Gerda had to pay to become rich, and we would be the only obstacle between Gerda and my father's inheritance when he died. So she took measures against us. She sent my younger brother Charles to a boarding school far away. This school had a good academic reputation, but was also known for its strict rules and harsh environment, often used for troubled children. It was not a place where a delicate and sensitive child like our Charles would feel comfortable. He was unhappy there, but despite everything, Gerda managed to get him in, and he could only come home during holidays. When he returned after his first year, he was pale and thin, with dark circles under his eyes that looked like bruises. He cried. He actually cried when our father told him he had to go back, but father didn't listen to him. Gerda insisted that the school would be good for Charles, so back he went. I did everything I could, writing encouraging letters and calling him every day until Gerda said it was too expensive and limited my calls to 5 minutes a month. I even asked father to book me a ticket to Europe to visit Charles. Gerda was furious when she found out. There was such a coldness in her gaze that it sent a shiver down my spine, and her mouth tightened into a thin, straight line, signaling nothing good for me, since I dared to interfere with her plans. 2 days before my flight to Europe, we received a call from the school saying that Charles had climbed to the highest tower and jumped. He was dead. Father was, of course, devastated, while Gerda quietly celebrated her triumph. For several months, father paid more attention to Richard and me than he had since our mother died. But Gerda was a very beautiful woman and soon found ways to distract father from us again. With one of the hated stepchildren dead, she turned her attention to the next one, poor Richard. Richard was a healthy boy, ready to start school. He would have made a great athlete. He would have thrived in the boarding school that ruined Charles. So Gerda sent him to an art school instead. He hated it, but Gerda convinced father that Richard had talent and his fate was sealed. My father had learned nothing from Charles's ordeal, but Richard was strong. He reluctantly learned to play the piano and violin, though he would have preferred football and rugby. But Gerda was smarter. She introduced Richard to some older boys who were everything Richard wanted to be: rich, popular, and played football. And they dabbled in drugs. Gerda knew Richard was easily influenced and used this weakness to ensure he became increasingly dependent on his new friends. This continued until Richard died from an overdose, leaving only one stepchild between Gerda and her Golmi. I was certain that Gerda knew Richard had taken drugs that day in his room. She knew he was unwell and could die. If she had found him 10 minutes earlier, he might have survived. That's what the doctor said, and I believed him. But father didn't believe me. He always got angry when I said anything against Gerda and ordered me to hold my tongue. But I knew I was next, and I also knew that father wouldn't live long after writing his will in favor of his wife. I decided that if Gerda went too far, I would run away and hide with my aunt in New Jersey until I turned 18. After Richard's body was found dead in his room, I made myself behave like the perfect child. I always did my homework on time, was polite to Gerda and all her friends, and accompanied Gerda and father everywhere, even to dangerous outings like shark hunting. Rest assured, I made sure to have seasickness spending all my time in the cabin, not even thinking of going near the yacht's edge. Gerda became more cunning with her tricks. Everyone believed it was just an accident when I fell onto the tracks in front of an oncoming train. I managed to roll off the tracks in time, but it was already too much. I was almost ready to run away when father brought terrible news: my aunt had suddenly died one night in New Jersey. She was poisoned by an unknown person or persons. I was shocked, but I can confidently say that Gerda received this news with a smile on her face. That evening, I locked myself in my room and began to think deeply. I could run, but my money would run out quickly. I needed to finish school, or my chances of getting a good job would be zero. Besides, Gerda would hunt me down anyway. If she could hire someone to poison my only relative, she could hire someone to kill me, whether I lived at home or not. I had only one option left. It was horrible. A family secret passed down through the generations on the maternal side. My mother had told me, many years ago, a witch named Bloody Mary had tried to kill my great-great-grandmother and use her blood to remain eternally young. Her father, my great-great-grandfather, stopped the witch at the last moment, and she cursed him and all those who burned her at the stake. The curse would come to life if one of the descendants said her name in front of a mirror, awakening her vengeful spirit. The story spread over the years, first through my ancestors' village and then the entire country. Nowadays, school children scare themselves at parties by standing in front of a mirror in the dark, and nothing happens. So, no one believes in the curse. Naturally, no one knows the whole truth about Bloody Mary. It was a secret passed down among the villagers many years ago. I was a direct descendant of those villagers, and I knew how to summon the witch. You had to use a mirror belonging to a direct descendant of someone who lived in the village during Bloody Mary's time. The witch's name had to be spoken a certain number of times, by candlelight in Bloody Mary's native language. What I was about to do was horrible, and I knew it, but it was the only way to save my life. Either Gerda or me. If I sat back, I would die. So I gathered all my hard-earned money and went to a specialty store to buy handmade wax candles. They were all black. I carefully followed my mother's instructions, arranging the candles in a circle at equal distances in the living room so they reflected in the large mirror above the sofa. Then I lit them one by one, saying the spell my mother taught me. I waited. Father had gone on a business trip, and Gerda had gone to a party with her new lover. She came home late and started scolding me for not finishing my work. Her voice was playful and light. I hated that voice. It seemed sweet and pleasant, but her words were laced with irritation. She glanced at the flickering black candles. "Conducting a séance, little Maria?" she asked, emphasizing little, knowing I hated being called that. "I just like doing my homework by candlelight," I pretended, turning a page in my textbook. Gerda frowned. "You know, little Maria, I think it's time we had a serious talk," she said, walking to the mirror behind the sofa and fixing her hair. "Yes," I said quietly. "It is time. You killed my brothers and my aunt, but I won't let you kill me." Gerda laughed. "You don't stand a chance against me," she said, tossing her long blonde hair over her shoulder. I began saying Bloody Mary's name in my ancestors' language. Once, twice, 3 times. Inside the mirror, Gerda's image disappeared in flames, replaced by another face. It was the angry face of an ancient old woman, untouched by time. It radiated hatred. I hid behind the armchair as Gerda screamed in horror, unable to look away from the witch. When I peeked out from my hiding place, I saw flames bursting from the mirror, scorching Gerda's fair skin. I heard the roar of flames and the evil witch's laughter as she reached for my stepmother. Gerda, Bloody Mary howled. "Come to me, Gerda." She grabbed Gerda and squeezed her tight. Gerda's scream of terror abruptly ended. The flames vanished as suddenly as they appeared. When I emerged from behind the armchair, neither Gerda nor Bloody Mary were there. I called Father the next morning to tell him Gerda hadn't slept at home. Well, it was true he was not pleased. He quickly called several of his friends and found out that Gerda had been seen with another man. Or rather, several. Father could forgive anything but infidelity. He immediately flew home to talk to Gerda, but she never showed up. Everyone assumed she had run away with one of her lovers. Either way, Father managed to divorce Gerda and didn't even try to find her. Since she had no one else, everyone accepted the official version, and no one tried to look for her. Gerda disappeared forever, and Father and I were finally completely safe.